Hey everyone, Dave Kittle here. Welcome back to the Dave Kittle Show. I am the owner of Concierge Pain Relief Home Physical Therapy and the CEO of the Fieldmaker Group. We're currently acquiring physical therapy practices in the New York and New Jersey area. And one of our colleagues, Dean Volk, of previously Volk Physical Therapy, was on the podcast recently and gave us a suggestion and a connection to have a guest that he is colleagues with and has known for a number of years. That is Michael Gorman. Michael is on the podcast today. We're going to get into his background of selling 7 locations in St. Louis, the St. Louis area, St. Louis Physical Therapy. We're going to get into how he sold those 7 locations, who he sold to. We're going to get into all of that. First of all, Michael, welcome on the podcast.
Dave, thank you very much. This is a great opportunity. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. And then we definitely want to explore also what you're currently doing now, which is Imu PT, Imu Physical Therapy, with in-home physical therapy, mobile visit. Do you call it mobile concierge, in-home, home health? Like what do you call what you're doing now?
Yeah, so we call it a mobile physical therapy practice, and we always try to, when we're talking to people about it, we say we are not home health care. So yeah, but yeah, like I'd love
outpatient about it. Outpatient PT in the home.
Exactly. Home or office or community or playing field or wherever somebody wants us to be.
Got it. And we're going to get into that a little bit later about now your company there is a franchise model. So if there are therapists out there, there's entrepreneurs, physical therapists that are interested, they can reach out to you in terms of any franchise opportunities. You have a number of other franchisees already. So definitely want to get into that. But the backstory is St. Louis Physical Therapy. So you had 7 locations. You sold your 7 locations in 2017. Tell us a little bit about the lead up. Why don't we start with, at that point, why did you think about selling? What was it that made you sell?
Sure. I had thought for about 5 or 6 years before I did finally sell. The thought of selling my practice was kind of always there in my head because of the fact that St. Louis, Missouri, like a lot of other areas in the U.S., it's a below average reimbursement area. And I fought it every way I could. I tried to lobby down our state capitol. I contacted all the insurance companies, did everything I could, but at the end of the day, the reimbursement was stagnant. And despite every attempt I made, it wasn't going anywhere. So I had a feeling that as I built our company up to 5, 6, 7 clinics, once I got to 7, I knew we just couldn't do anymore. Our margins were getting leaner and leaner. You want to take care of your employees, and I wanted to make sure that my staff was treated well and try to do a raise every year and all that. But if the reimbursement is stagnant at the rate that we had, you got to look long term, and it wasn't going to be successful long term. And it was hard because I am very much an entrepreneur at heart, and I love to create jobs, and I love to have a team, and yeah, but for my family, for me, it was best.
Got it. And in the pre-interview, you were suggesting I should probably have someone on in regards to go and do this solo versus with partners. So we also didn't cover in the pre-interview, did you own, when you sold, did you own 100% or did you have partners?
When we sold, I owned 4 of the clinics outright. So I started the company back in 2002. And then after I'd been open about 7 or 8 years, I took on one partner, and she was my partner in 2 of the clinics, 2 of the 7. And then towards the end, I took a partner in our final clinic. So I had 2 partners. And it was a challenge because those 2 partners were not part of the 7. They were part of their 2 and their 1. So it was not always easy. And then when it was time for us to sell, everyone had to be on the same page, and that's not always easy either.
Right. That sounds like it could be challenging for sure. Okay. So you had, at the time you sold in 2017, the 7 locations. What was the scale of the team at that point?
Team, we had approximately 25 physical therapists and then 25 admin, support staff, billers, front desk people.
Got it. And I know we're going to skip the name of the company that acquired you, but it was a national healthcare company, a large corporate. That was part of your situation there. So how did that go? Did you speak with just them? Did you speak with multiple prospective buyers? If you can think back, I know it's been now 5 years. How did that go in regards to getting offers and all that?
It was, I would say that we started the process with our broker in February of 2017, and we sold on October 1 of that year. So the process took about whatever that is, 7, 8 months. And I felt like I did a good job of getting, my broker every information he needed. The company that bought me, they had needs, requests, and I would always turn around. But it just takes time. I do know of people that have been able to get a deal done in 3 to 4 months, but again, ours was a little bit complicated because I had 2 partners as well. And we had offers from, there was probably 3 or 4 other companies that made offers. One was an offer to buy 70% of our practice. But ultimately we decided, given the reimbursement climate in St. Louis, that 30% of our practice did not mean much, because I should say we did not want to become a volume practice. We would schedule one every half hour, but we would not take it past that. And it's not uncommon now for outpatient clinics in lower reimbursed areas to, one person sees 3, 4 people an hour, and we were not willing to go in that direction.
Got it. Makes sense. So in the pre-interview, you were talking about your broker. So shout out to what, you're okay to say the broker's name, right? We'll give him some. Give him a shout out.
His name is Jason Hebert. He lives in Vancouver, and tremendous person. And him and I are still very, very good friends now.
Do you remember how you got connected with him originally? Was that a referral? Was that some online, if you remember?
That is a very good question. I believe I talked with him maybe a year before, and I don't recall if he reached out to me or how it happened, but the first time we talked, it just wasn't time yet. It's a big step. And so I was torn quite a bit. And I was torn also because I knew that if I sold, there was a chance that some of my employees would not be kept. And any owner that's worth his or her salt does not want to lose any employees. So I did lose, after I sold, we lost, I think, 2 or 3 employees. And those employees were very important to me. It's just, when we got bought out by a large corporation, their role wasn't needed anymore. I would honestly say that was one of the hardest things throughout, is especially that last month when I knew who was going to be kept and who was not.
So was that someone that was in the front desk? Was that like a billing person, care coordination? If you remember the role that was kind of redundant at that point?
Yeah, it was really our billing team. And then the woman that was really my right-hand man for years, and she was in operations for me. She did so much for me, and the company that did buy me out was willing to keep her on, but at a reduced role and a reduced salary, and it just did not work. So that is very hard when an owner, you own anything you own and you're going to sell it. You have to kind of take all that into play. I was very happy though, after we were sold, I did help her to get her onto her next job. So at least, I feel like I did my very best.
There you go. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So in terms of the reason why I was asking about your broker, because a lot of practice owners that are maybe thinking about it, if they're watching this, they're listening to this, they might be in the process. And it's typically like, if you thought back like 5, 6 years ago, typically most owners are thinking like, well, how can I sell for max value, top dollar, fair market rate, whatever, but get the most out of it, which you should. I mean, that's what you deserve. And then also, like, do I need a broker or not? So that's the reason why I was asking about your broker, and like, did you find them online? Did you get a referral from somebody? So it's always good for other owners to hear like some of the steps and the situations that other owners that came before them, what did they do? How did their process go? So that's super helpful to hear. A little bit more about the buyer that you eventually went with.
Mm-hmm.
In the pre-interview, we were talking about the EBITDA multiple, and I put out other interviews and topics about EBITDA,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically like your net profit and then plus add backs and owner perks and things like that. So what's kind of going to be the unencumbered cash flow of the practice if the owner didn't have the extra owner perks in there? So that's what a buyer like us is looking for. And your deal structure. Can we go into a little bit more of the EBITDA and the multiple and how you guys got there?
Absolutely. Honestly, we went into it, Dave, really thinking it was going to be, and even Jason, I believe, felt this, it was going to be 3 to 4 times multiple. That's what he felt for our company. We had 7 clinics, so we were big, but not a monstrous 20 clinic company. And just given the reimbursement climate, the market, I believe he would have been really happy with the 4 times multiple. And we actually wound up with a 7 times multiple. And that was an offer that we did not expect. We were very happy because there's no doubt that we, like other private practice owners, you work very hard. It's an all-in phenomena. You sacrifice a lot of things in order to be a private practice owner if you do it right. So we were excited about that. I mean, that was a very exciting thing for us. And you asked me earlier when we were off air, is that something that I have to really negotiate that? I don't really recall. It might have been their second offer. And we had 2 offers that were really very good. And I think I said earlier that there was one that was a group that wanted us to maintain some ownership. But for us at that point in time in that reimbursement climate, I think myself and my 2 partners, we just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Got it. So you guys ended up agreeing and selling 100%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for a therapy practice owner that's listening right now, if they had 1 or 2 locations, maybe they were around $1 million or 2 in revenue, and they're listening to this, could they get 7x EBITDA? Or what are your thoughts like in terms of like that type of a size?
I would say no, but yet, you know what? I haven't been in the field. I haven't been in the broker market now for about 5 years, so I'm not sure what the multiples are now. I would say if you have a onesie or twosie clinic company, I think if you could, again, this is based on what I know from before.
Yeah, we're not going to hold you to it.
I don't want anyone coming after me, Dave. Mike Gorman, you said I'd get 7 times. No,
just want to hear from you. Just want to hear.
I think if you have a company that size, I think it's like I think you should be able to get a 3 times multiple of EBITDA. I think 3 times is realistic. And it's so many things come into play. How bad does that company that's acquiring you, do they want to get into your area? Like, when Dean Vogt sold to Cora, I know Cora, I don't really recall if they were in Charlotte at that time or not, but I know I heard Dean say that they really wanted to get into that market. And so they're going to be probably a more motivated buyer. Whereas if someone already has a bunch of clinics in the area and they're happy with that, and 1 or 2, that may not add much value to them, depending upon your clinic, your expertise, how well you're connected in the community. All those things are important.
Got it. So we're not going to hold you to that number, but it was helpful for me to ask you, as like you and I, we spoke a couple times over the phone. We're just meeting over Zoom for the first time. The reason why I was asking is because with an offer that you got for 7 locations, you have more scale. You have more net profit at the end of the year. So you have a chunkier net profit number than someone that has 1 or 2 locations that's doing $1 million or 2 in revenue. Maybe they're around 200, 300, 400 grand, maybe 500 grand in net profit or in that range of EBITDA. So I wanted to hear it from you and that's how we feel. And so I just wanted to get your insight, your thoughts, even though, like you said, you haven't been in the broker market. You haven't really, talked about EBITDA multiples with a broker or what a broker is seeing right now. But I wanted to kind of just hear from you because someone that has the one or two locations, sometimes the initial conversations with us, they might be asking for that, 5, 6, 7 EBITDA multiple. And we get it, but also at the same time, it has to make financial sense. And some bigger buyer looks at your 7 location footprint, and that's a gigantic footprint. And assuming, and it was probably operating well. And like you said, you had one patient scheduled every 30 minutes. So it wasn't like a mill or a factory. It was probably something that had a great reputation, a great, impact on the community. So there was like all these like positives for that, national buyer that bought you. So I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on the EBITDA multiple, and kind of have other owners not hear from me once on the show and hear from somebody else.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. And it was very intriguing because, we, like a lot of owners, we had business debt, but it was intriguing to me because, you still have to pay for that debt. If you have items on your balance sheet, if you have liabilities on the balance sheet, whoever acquires you isn't going to pay that off for you. They're not going to give you more money so you can pay that debt off. But at the same point in time, they didn't really care about that debt because they don't have to pay for it. So they're going to give you what your clinic is worth. And then, of course, after the sale, you've got to take care of your own debt. And that's one of the things that in the contract is that it's made sure that the first portion of your payout, if you have debt, it goes to paying off that debt, just because they don't want to sell to an owner who then takes that money and does not pay off the debt. Then they can get into financial trouble, which could then ruin their deal. Who knows? That person, that owner, if they don't pay off their debt, could wind up in jail, and then the corporation that bought you out is for nothing, or they're left with 7 clinics, but the person that drove it is gone. So it's I guess it depends upon who buys you as well, but it's a very thorough process.
Right.
Very thorough. Yes.
In terms of the debt that you guys had at that time, was that mostly for construction or, capital expenditures with equipment? Maybe you guys were building out new locations, that 6th or 7th location, or what?
Yeah, I would say that's really what it is. It wasn't like loans to pay payroll or anything like that. It was more to allow growth to occur, expansion to occur. And again, when you make what we did from a reimbursement standpoint, and you weren't willing to become a volume clinic, well, I mean, your margins begin to shrink, because as I was telling you before we got on, I always wanted to have a company where we took care of our employees, and we tried to do our best to give a raise every single year and do good things for them. And well, if that's going up, if your expenses are going up and your reimbursement is stagnant or sometimes declining, it just really didn't make sense for us anymore.
Got it. And then how about approximately how much cash at close versus an earnout component, the deal structure from the acquisition?
I'm thinking that, and again, it's been a couple of years since I've looked at it, but I feel like we had 75 or 80% at close. And then we had, say, 10 more percent at the end of year 1, and then the final payout at the end of year 2. And we didn't mind. And to me, it made sense. I mean, I think it was the company that bought us. It was their way of just, ensuring that we stick around, and, and we didn't have a problem with that. We thought that was fair.
And how long did you stick around? Like, were you there months, years during the transition?
Well, so we sold in October of 2017, and I left this company in March of 2020. So about 2.5 years. You can learn something from every experience. There's good and bad out of everything, and it was definitely a good experience. But when you are used to being the entrepreneur, and when you're used to being the owner, then all of a sudden you go to work for someone that's very large with many different layers and many different people that have to give you a thumbs up. After a while, it does grow weary. I was still treating a fair amount of patients, and I was managing several clinics. And it just to the end to where I was burned out and I didn't enjoy it anymore. And I could not see myself at that time working another 10 plus years in that role. And again, it's no harm against that company. And there's a lot of great people there, but for me, long term, it just didn't work. And that's not what I thought going into it. I really, when I sold, I really felt like this was going to be my last company I was going to work with until I retired.
When you signed you signed all your agreements and everything during the sale, did you have to stay there for the 1 year, the 2 year, the 3 year, or like when you left at that time in 2020, like had you already gone past a certain time that you agreed to be there post close and help with the transition? Did you leave early and leave some money on the table? So
to be honest, Dave, I don't recall if we had left or if I had left after 6 months. I do feel like that payout was still going to occur. So it wasn't really, I despite what some people might think, I didn't time it where after the final payout came, then I left. It was several things. It was burnout, and it was because I'd been in the outpatient world for 27 years at that time, and I was just, I think I was very burned out on being in a brick and mortar office and being confined in a brick and mortar office where everyone came to me. Right around that time was when COVID started, and I did not leave because of COVID. I wasn't afraid to treat patients in the clinic, but it definitely, I don't know, it definitely changed the way the world thought at that time. And just so a combination of things, and just that honestly, the entrepreneurial spirit in me, just, this sounds cheesy, but it just had to come back out. And when you work for someone else or work for a large company, it can be tough. And that's what ultimately I did. So in March of 2020, I left this major company, and I didn't have anything except a 2.5 year non-compete.
2.5 year non-compete. Got it.
At 2.5 years after I left. So when my partners and I sold their practice, we had a 5 year non-compete from date of sale.
Got it. And the other partners, they were also PTs as well?
They were, yes. They are, yes.
They are. Got it. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of, so 7x EBITDA, you had 7 locations. Some of this might be, I'm not sure if, and we don't have to say if the national company, if they're public or not. We could skip that. But in terms of assuming you have 7 locations, you were basically the principal owner, or, in terms of the owner there. Typically, ballpark window would be like, I don't know, 6 million to 8 million for total purchase price. You don't have to mention if you're not comfortable about the purchase price, but is that kind of the window, or we could just skip it? It's up to you.
No, we can. I won't tell you exactly how much. I'm sure you can go online and find out, but we were much lower than that. So if I would have loved it if we could have been a $6 to $8 million sale, but we were lower. It was still, to myself and my partners, we were still very happy, but it was not quite that high. And again, I think that all depends on the area you're in and your reimbursement. We had good full clinics. Our clinics were all full. But again, it kind of depends on the area you're in. And, to be honest, the company that bought me out said, wow, you really took care of your employees well. I'm just not a fan of turnover. I would rather treat people well and pay them a bit more upfront. And honestly, this experience of when I worked for this company for 2.5 years, it definitely opened my eyes again to what it was like to be an employee. Sometimes when you're an owner of a practice, you sort of forget what it's like to be an employee. And not that it was bad. It wasn't a bad experience, but it kind of opened my eyes.
Got it. In the pre-interview, we also talked briefly about, you get this big lump sum of money. And that's then the next step, right? Either leading up to the acquisition, owners should probably be speaking with either a wealth manager, a financial advisor, right? Some person. Did you already have someone in your corner before you sold that was someone to kind of help you with the financial side of like where to put this money, or is that something that happened after the sale?
No, it was it was nice to be able. I had had a financial advisor for years, but I probably wasn't a very very important customer of his. It was nice when I sold. I finally became a little bit more important customer. He's a great guy, but when I owned my company, of course we took owner draw and all that, but there wasn't a lot of extra income to invest. So I did for sure. I kept him in the loop of what was going on. I think that was super important.
And in terms of investing some of that money in the pre-interview, you mentioned the ROM3 medical device you invested in, right? You're okay with saying that publicly?
Absolutely, yes.
And then other places you mentioned in the pre-interview. So like where else did you, where else maybe invest some of this money that you
Yeah,
putting it in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we obviously paid off all of our debt. Paid off all of our debt, which was beautiful. And then yeah, Dave, I think that's when, didn't you invite us over to your chalet in New York City at that time? And we stayed there for a month. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No, we put some money in IRA 401ks, but I was telling you before we got on this that the number one thing I did was invest in myself. And
How
we'll
so?
talk about, um, we can kind of talk about this, but after I left this national employer, I had to figure life out. I mean, I have kids and I have a wife and I had to figure it out. And so I tried to do telehealth. That's when the pandemic was just starting, and telehealth is a great thing. I think I'm glad that it's people are talking about it. Obviously not as much now as when the pandemic started, but I tried to have a telehealth practice, and for 2 or 3 months, I did everything. I did Facebook Lives. I tried to build a community online, and it was very, very hard to have a telehealth only practice. And so after doing that for about 2 or 3 months, I really had to pivot and think of what else I was going to do. I was looking at maybe acquiring an out of town clinic. I was looking at maybe going into sales. I didn't know. I didn't know, but I knew that after 2 or 3 months of telehealth, unfortunately for me, it was not going to work. And so my wife, who is brilliant, and I give her all the credit in the world, she told me, Mike, why don't you become a Medicare Part B provider and treat in the home? And my non-compete did allow a home care exclusion. And so I did that. I started that in June of 2020. Our company name is Imu PT. And shortly thereafter, I invested in myself because I knew that this was a model that many therapists would enjoy, many patients would enjoy. And starting January 2021, I started working with a franchise attorney to build out this franchise concept. So that's really how I invested in myself. And I always think that a person should, yes, you should obviously have investments and things like that, but the number one thing you can control is yourself. So do whatever you can, whether it's further education or whatever it is, always grow. And so this was my opportunity. And so I spent a lot of time in 2021 racking up attorney expenses, building out the franchise, and we started franchising in January of 2022.
That's awesome. So in between all that, though, is when you had already known Dean Volk. I want to touch on that briefly and then come back to Imu PT. So you were trying to acquire Dean Volk's 2 locations, which eventually that was your conversations were early before COVID, and then like as things developed, it was like March or whatever of 2020. So the timing just wasn't right, and then Dean eventually sold his 2 locations to Cora, which he mentioned on the podcast. So that was your you were looking to go that route because you would have been out of state, you would have been outside of the non-compete, right? That was one of the
Correct.
reasons.
Correct. And I thought it'd be fun to own a clinic. I like to travel. I thought, well, this would be fun to use my experience and own a clinic out of state. I didn't really need to treat that much anymore. I still treat some, but not a whole lot. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity. I really enjoyed getting to meet Dean and his team. So, but everything happens for a reason.
Right. COVID happened. Things happen. So then your wife suggests to do the in-home physical therapy. You start Imu PT. Why go the franchise route and start looking that direction as opposed to just like the traditional model that you did before, which was the brick and mortar, but just hiring staff, and you could also have different footprints in other states or other markets without the franchise model. So why the franchise model specifically?
Well, that was not my mindset in the very beginning. It became my mindset about 3 months after treating, when I started to see the tremendous care that patients receive when you could focus one-on-one on them without other patients behind you doing exercise, without a phone call you had to take, without an email you had to answer while you were treating. And they just, at that point in time, probably fall of 2020, it's like, this is the way it's supposed to be. And when I just woke up that one day and thought that, I said, this is what needs to be shared, because long after I'm gone, I want to leave a little bit of a legacy behind, and I want to give a physical therapist the opportunity to be self-employed, because Lord knows when we're going through physical therapy school, I went to the University of Missouri, loved it. Perfect, great. I graduated much before you. Maybe I graduated before you were born. I don't know. But I graduated in 1993. And we had, I think our last semester, we had a 2-hour business course where we learned about insurance, taught by an 85-year-old guy at 7:40 in the morning. And so and that's probably not uncommon. Hopefully it's changing, but I don't know. And so we as a profession don't understand business, what it takes. And so it's always intrigued me. And I wanted to have an opportunity to share what I've learned and give others the opportunity to be self-employed, truly create something they're building for themselves, for their family. And, honestly, when you're a franchisee, it's your company, and they're operating within our brand standards, but it's their company. And one day, if they choose to, they have something that they can sell. And they won't have to work for a hospital. They won't have to work for a turn and burn outpatient clinic. I'm not saying all of them are, but some are. And, I know it's not for everyone, but there's a lot of people out there that want to do something for themselves. But the fear and the complexity of being self-employed in healthcare, where there's a lot of rules and regs, it's not easy. So I wanted to impart my experience to give people the opportunity. And, it's fun. It's fun to go travel. We have a franchisee now in Tulsa. We have a franchisee in Kansas City, and hopefully before the end of the year, a couple more. And I love to go down there and meet them and their families. And because it has to be a personal experience.
How did those therapists find out about you and Imu PT?
Those two, my first franchise in Tulsa, actually a buddy of mine in Kansas City, he was his friend. And probably a year ago, my franchisee in Tulsa and my buddy in Kansas City were talking. My franchisee, he was really burned out in his job. And he goes, this isn't for me. I want to do something else. I don't know what. And so my friend in Kansas City, well, why don't you talk to Mike Gorman? He's doing something that you might want to learn about. And so we talked for months. We couldn't do anything because it wasn't a legal franchisee until January. And that's how I met Tyler and Craig Lee, who's my franchisee in Kansas City. Craig and I, we've known each other for maybe 5, 6, 7 years. Go down to our state lobby day. We see each other. And he was at a similar point in his career. He was, he was a bit burned out and knew that there was something else for him that maybe would have more meaning. And so he called me and last fall, and same kind of thing. We just talked, and once we became a franchise, once I could have a franchisee, we kept talking, and then I went into town and saw him, and he shadowed me. And it's very, very much it's important to me as this franchise network gets built out, that it's personal. That because you should know that we franchise physical therapists only. I'm not going to franchise to a business guy or a business lady that just wants an investment. I don't want that. I want people that are still wanting to treat some, but that they want to develop a team of their own, and they want to develop a company of their own under our brand. And so because of that, I always want to, it's okay if it's small. I don't really care, to be honest. It's more important to have the right people. And I love the fact that I can go down and travel and spend a couple days there and come back here. And I have a great team in St. Louis that, because it's very hard to be a franchisee if you're still in the weeds in your own company. And so very hard to be a franchisor, hard to be a franchisor if you're still in the weeds, doing everything you have to keep your company in St. Louis going. So I have a fantastic team here that's really unloaded me and taken over many, many great roles. So I could, spend a bit more time being a franchisor, because it's a totally different world.
Awesome. Can I pull up the website here and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. Can I pull that up?
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
Awesome. So guys, if you're watching or if you're on the internet, if you're listening, first of all, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. But if you're on iTunes or Spotify right now, the website is imuvephysicaltherapy.com and designed really well. I wanted to ask you a couple questions. So first of all, the first thing that I came across when I checked you out and I saw annual musculoskeletal exam. I'm sorry, annual musculoskeletal physical exam. So it's kind of like you go to a physician once a year for your annual physical. Whose idea was this? I think this is genius.
It was my idea. I mean, I'm sure I read it somewhere else a long time ago, and it's something I always wanted to implement for probably the last 2 or 3 years when I was self-employed with the outpatient practice, and then the couple of years I was employed with this major corporation. I talked with a couple folks about it, but it just never ever took off. And I think that we as physical therapists always sell ourselves short. And because of that, we're afraid to do things outside the box. So that our site right there under Imu PT services, these are all the cash-based services that we provide, because my goal with Imu PT was not just to have a mobile company where we treat patients for whatever, 4, 5, 6 weeks, but to build a community of people that we can provide they can have a high level of wellness with our input, because it goes so much more beyond the 4, 5, 6 weeks of treatment. And so we've really built a community of people that value what we do, but we have to learn how to educate, and we have to learn how to let patients know and let physicians know, let communities know what it is that we can do, and that we're worth every penny.
How do you guys do custom made foot orthotics if you're mobile?
So we do it one of two ways. We do it where I make plaster cast, the patient's prone, subtalar, neutral. I still do it. That may be the old-fashioned way, but that's how I learned a long time ago. And so I do that. And we also use a product called Vasili, which I don't know if you've heard of, Dave, or not. They've been around for a while, but it's a semi-custom orthotic product. So it's much better than a Dr. Scholl's over-the-counter, but yet it's not custom either. It's a semi-custom product that it's a lower price point than custom. Doesn't last as long as custom, but so someone has two choices.
And what is okay? So let's see. You have another team member here. So integrated functional nutritional consult. So this maybe is more local to you and not necessarily in the other markets.
Not really.
Or it's remote.
It is. So Jillian Warwick. Jillian is such a smart lady. Um, when I used to do Facebook Lives a lot, and she was my guest a couple times, and I got to know her and meet her. She's just so smart, and she lives in Florida, and so the beauty of it that she can Zoom with our patients, because we know, Dave, that so many of our patients need this. They need the nutritional component. We can educate generally, but she does amazing things with them. So that's again part of our wellness approach, our long-term wellness approach, where we want people to be healthy and live longer.
Got it. Very interesting. And now, franchise opportunities. So right here on the website, you could just fill out this form, and then either Mike or someone on his team will reach out to you, I'm assuming, and it gives a little, is this for you? So, some filtering here to see if it's the right fit.
Right.
And I did click on this video. It was really good, well done video about this type of opportunity. What's other than recapping the bullet points here, if there's a therapist or an owner, there could be an owner listening or watching right now that sells to us, sells to another buyer, and then maybe a year or two down the road wants to do the same thing. But rather than starting from scratch and doing the whole franchise model like you did, maybe contacting you about a franchise opportunity. So who, other than the bullet point here, this list, who would be a good fit? Like you said, you want to attract therapists, not investor type folks. This is someone you're looking to attract clinicians that are treating patients. Do they need to be ortho-based, neuro-based? Do they, need to have history working in geriatrics? Do they need history working or doing any type of home visit?
Well, you bring up, those are all really, really great points. To me, it would be a therapist that has worked in the outpatient clinic, and knows what that burnout is like, and knows that it's probably not going to change much over the life of their career. So I want them to kind of experience that. So when they come into our model, they see what a different experience it is. I would say that orthopedic background is very, very important, but we see a lot of neurological cases as well. So you don't have to be a fellowship trained manual therapist. All those things are helpful, or OCS, that's all helpful. But I think it's truly, if a franchisee did have a neurological slant, I think that can work out beautifully as well, because depending upon the market you're in and the reimbursement market, here in St. Louis, we do Medicare Part B, and we just started taking TRICARE, and we do self-pay. It would not make sense in this market for us to take the private insurance plans. I won't say by names, but it would not make sense, because you're simply not going to make enough to grow a company, to have a company, especially once you start having employees.
You just answered my next question. I was going to ask if you were in network with a lot of the payers or out of network. So now you don't do out of network billing for some of those commercial payers? Like if someone hits their deductible, you don't do it. You just do the private pay, and then they can submit the super bill.
Yes, we give them everything they would need to submit. We give them a paid invoice that has all the ICD-10, CPT codes, everything they would need to submit. But that is a world that I did not want to get into, because if those of you that have done out-of-network billing, sometimes you don't know where the check's going to, and sometimes the check goes to the provider, sometimes the check goes to the patient, and it could become a real mess. So we chose to just not get into that. Look, there could be certain markets that we go into franchising that maybe it makes sense to be on the insurance plans. I know there's better reimbursed cities, Portland, Seattle. I'm sure there's a lot more. I'm sure there's more. I'm not going to say a lot more, but we know where we need to be from a reimbursement standpoint. And we do not take the Medicare Advantage plans either. So we've had awesome growth. Yeah, we've had awesome growth here. And that's without being able to take the private insurances, and without having to be on Medicare Advantage, but we do, right now we have about 20% of our patients are self-pay, and people, you don't ever know who values their health enough to pay out of pocket, and you can never ever assume. Sometimes people that have a lot of money will never pay self-pay, and some people that don't, you wouldn't think they would do self-pay for weeks.
Right.
Yeah, but it's, our model is set. We're looking at other opportunities. We looking at just other, because we're mobile. There's a heck of a lot of opportunities that we could get into, and as we can continue to grow, I definitely see a lot of amazing things. And the world has become mobile, and this is just it's just, I don't know. I just love this model, and I know there's so many therapists out there that will love this. And now, look, I have to be honest. I'm sure that every listener on this, it's already in their brain. Okay, Mike, you see one patient an hour, and you're saying Medicare, TRICARE, self-pay. Yeah, if you want to have a practice where you're going to make the most money you possibly can, Dave, I would say this model may not be for you. I think you'll do very well for yourself, but our model is one that will give you longevity and will give you happiness, and will give you, that work-life blend. I don't say that a lot, but my stress level as a PT is so much lower. And to me, you can't put a price tag on that. So you'll do well. Would you make more money being an outpatient clinic where you see 3 patients an hour? Of course. But I've experienced those kind of lives, and I've seen some of my employees now came from settings like that. And that does, I hate saying it, but it leads to burnout. And several people that work for me have 3 to 5 years experience, Dave, and they were all ready to leave our profession. They spent all this money on their education, and after 3 to 5 years, they're about done.
So this is another option. It might not be for everyone, but
absolutely,
if you're looking for less volume, less overwhelm, this might be for you. So the best place for them to go, if someone, an owner, a clinician, is it to send them to imuphysicaltherapy.com, or they click over here on this portal to go to where is it, the franchise imuphysicaltherapy.com. What's the best place for someone to, if they wanted to reach out to you, whether it's the website, maybe email address or anything like that?
I think they could just call me or text me. My phone number is 636-578-3649. So they can call, they can text, or they can email me. It's mike@imuphysicaltherapy.com. Our company name is iMove PT. However, when we went to get that URL, unfortunately, it was taken. So mike@imuphysicaltherapy.com.
Got it. But were you able to get the this logo iMove PT with the
trademark?
You got a trademark? Nice.
Yeah, and it doesn't show it there because I've got to change it. That's our logo without the trademark, so I have to change it. But yeah, we got that early in the year, and yeah, it's just I don't know. I always enjoy talking with people on the phone. I tell everyone I've talked to several people so far in 2022 about thinking about becoming a franchisee. Mike, you know what? Even if it doesn't work out, we still become friends, and we can build a great network together. So, but yeah, it's great. I would say it's a brand new world. I've met a lot of new people doing this I would have never met before.
That's awesome. So folks, you guys can reach out to Mike. He gave you his cell phone number directly. Pretty bold to put that out, but you'll be all right. Hopefully the people that reach out to you are legit and won't waste your time. But you can also check out imuphysicaltherapy.com. Mike Gorman, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Dean Volk, thank you for the introduction to Mike Gorman. Really appreciate it, and your time and giving us the whole backstory. And we wish you nothing but success moving forward. And then maybe down the road, several months or in the next year or so, we have it come back on the show, and we can talk more about the growth of iMove PT and how you guys hopefully have entered other markets, and you're helping more clinicians treat the way they want to, one-on-one. and reaching more patients and helping more communities.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dave. I'm very impressed by you. That 2 or 3 times we've talked. I'm so happy you're doing this and you're educating therapists out there on what it is to build a business, sell a business, and we need more people like you. And I've been honored and blessed to be a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com, or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.